Ladies and gentlemen, as per a survey by Open Doors report, the number of Indians pursuing postgraduate studies in the United States increased 63% in the academic year 2022-23, surpassing China for the first time in 15 years, which, by the way, makes India the largest source of international graduate students in America. 1.65 lakh Indian students versus 1.26 lakh Chinese students in the United States currently. Remember, India and China together account for 52% of the total international students in America. India's increase in number represents a significant shift in the demographic composition of international students in the United States. Our share has doubled over the past decade, rising from 12% back in 2012-13 to 25% in 2022-23, just 2 percentage points shy of the current Chinese share, which stands at 27%. A decade ago, China's share was 31%. Not just numbers, the report also talks about the subjects that are being pursued by Indian students in the United States. And interestingly, in the choice of subject, engineering is no longer the most popular choice for Indians pursuing higher education in the US. Mathematics and computer sciences are now preferred more. About 41.2% Indian students in the US are studying these subjects. So what explains this rise, and what is it that is still attracting Indians to the United States for their higher education? I take this to my guests tonight. I'm joined by Meeta Sengupta, Education Strategy and Policy Advisor, as well as Pranay Agarwal, Educationist. Good evening, namaskar. Thank you to both of you for joining us on Mirror Now. Pranay Agarwal, I would like to start with you. How do you see really this rise in the number of Indian students pursuing higher education in US?
Yes, hello Shreya. So thanks for having me. I would say that it is not a surprise, given that the US has always been one of the top destinations for international students globally, right? Not just Indian students from across the globe, US has been one of the top destinations. One of the reasons, of course, that overshadows all others is the quality of education and the academic excellence culture that the US fosters. So US, of course, is home to some of the most sought after Ivy League colleges, whether it is a Harvard University or a Princeton or a Yale. They have, through the decades, they have maintained very high academic standards and very rigorous kind of a coursework. And it is this quality of education which has ensured that US universities, they predominate any global rankings, whether it is the Times Higher Education ranking you take, the QS World Ranking, 27 of the top 100 universities are from the US. So over several decades, American institutions, they have built an international reputation. And US today is known for its high academic standards. That is the primary reason. Then, of course, there is the facility of the English language. In our higher education system also, we are familiarized with English. So that is also the language of the US. So that helps. Thirdly, there is, US is also a technology powerhouse, and it's a hub of international cutting edge science and research. And that is why one of the reasons why courses in the field of STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and maths, are amongst the more popular ones, right? And you have about 77% of Indian students studying in the US, they were enrolled in STEM courses. Also, what it really ultimately boils down is to the employability, and having an American degree works very well for a person's chance of moving higher up in life. And it's not just the American education system, but also the American economy and the American way of life, which is very, very attractive to these Indian students. So, and also that, Indian students have a lot of good examples to look up to, whether it is a Satya Nadella of the Microsoft or Sundar Pichai of Google Alphabet, or the ex-Twitter CEO Parag Agarwal or Indra Nui. So many, right? These are Indians who have been to the US as students and they have reached the top. So, American culture and economy is that way very seductive and aspirational. I would say it entails a lot of freedoms and is considered a land of
But
opportunities.
can I also ask
So
at this point, Meeta Sen Gupta, with due respect to everybody who's achieved what they have, and they've set some great examples through their journeys when they've gone abroad and brought pride to India. But have we as a country not seen our own role models here back in the country enough? Or are we justified in glamorizing and romanticizing the role models that only go outside and achieve what they achieve?
So it's not a zero-sum game. We have wonderful role models in India. The startup culture has brought forth a lot of talent, rigorous hard work, economic benefit, and we have created many role models in India. But the other model has a longer history. And that journey actually has been longer. The journey of Indian students in America from the 1960s to now, it's an 80, 85-year-old journey that seems to be peaking right now. And the journey of Indian startups and Indian success is only, let us say, about 2025 post-liberalization. So, of course, there is a huge run of growth that is expected in India as well. The thing is, the growth in India is the future. The growth in American opportunity is now. And so, of course, anybody who is able to join in this wonderful surge of opportunity right now certainly should. And the economic reasons are probably something, agree with Pranay, one of the finest reasons, but those are not the only reasons for going to American university. The very experience of American universities is completely different from the experience of most Indian universities. It is the freedom, the challenge within class, the ability to debate, the very pedagogies, the fact that you are not following merely a curriculum, but you are creating an internal processor for yourself. Now, that is something that you do get in American universities, which Indian universities currently do not offer, though it is the aspiration of the new education policy. But it
And therefore,
currently
Meeta
is
Sengupta,
not
do
on
you
offer.
think that with the national education policy, will we able to change that? Will we able to change that with the NEP, the whole, rote learning and curriculum, stringent curriculum that we all have followed in our education system? Do you think with the government getting in the NEP, new education policy, we'll be able to change that?
I want to be optimistic over here, but I do recognize the fact that the roadblocks to understanding and implementing the NEP are huge at this stage, which is natural at the beginning of something that is representing such a radical change, such a radical difference from curriculum first. And of course, Indian curriculum has been recognized as pretty solid, but it's not merely the curriculum, it's what you do with it that's important. And that change is something that's becoming very, very difficult to implement at this stage because, of course, educators on the ground are struggling to see how it will fit with the way they have been able to deliver success in an efficient manner. We are asking for something that is a paradigm shift, and that is always going to be a struggle. The good
Hmm.
news for us is that, and the bad news both, is that we are in the middle of a demographic bulge. So at this stage, in fact, our students going abroad is not such bad news because it gives us a little bit of time, 10 to 15 years, to build and our systems to that level of rigor. It takes 10 to 15 years to build soft university, the soft excellence in universities. Hard excellence buildings, etc., very easy to build. It takes 2 to 5 years to build that. We're already way ahead in that journey. But the soft expertise takes 10 to 15 years to build. If our demographic bulge is going abroad right now, let us also remember much of the talent is also coming back to India, to Indian corporates. So we're not losing talent the way we used to in the 80s and 90s. Sure, everybody likes to go abroad for a little while, gain some experience, but many people come back, especially in the almost senior levels. They live in India, they have the Indian experience while holding global jobs and global roles at the
Hmm.
CXO levels. So this journey, this is part of the wonderful churn we are seeing right now. It is an opportunity for India. I said before, I
Okay.
want to be optimistic that this will pan out, but that really depends upon how we are able to grow ourselves as educators, create the processor pedagogical capacity for our students, give our students the opportunity to grow into genuine adults. Many of our colleges still treat students as children, they're called children. The adulting of our education is yet to happen. And actually, that is where the American university experience, in a way, wins over the Indian experience. You go there to grow up. You come back a grown up
Interesting
person.
point there, Meeta
You come
Sengupta. Pranay, uh, do you see the change happening on ground? Have we started moving in that direction where we're talking of the adulting of education that Meeta Sengupta put so rightly and so clearly, and perhaps that's a much needed step that we need in our education system?
So I couldn't agree more with Meeta that yes, it is a much needed step we need to take. But I'm afraid I don't share her optimism. Yes, the national education policy does make some very right noises, I would say, but to walk the talk is a different matter altogether. And it will require a paradigm shift, which is going to take time. So, to its credit, the national education policy does talk about granting graded autonomy to colleges and creating giving greater freedom to faculty so that they can design their own curriculum and even their pedagogy, right? And that should encourage in the long run the faculty to also conduct more innovative teaching methods and research, contribute more towards research, which is still till now missing. But then again, the NEP also has reflects somewhere a regressive mindset. For instance, when it says that it wants to stop the commercialization of higher education. So that is not something that will work in today's day and age. So that needs to be rethought, and of course, there are a lot of shortcomings
Which is
which need to
also
be
something
addressed.
that
Whether
comes
it
in
is
when we talk about Indian students and foreign students coming to American universities, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, these universities and therefore the American economy is also getting its revenue through foreign students.
yes, that is an important factor, I would say. But about 5.5% of all American students are from foreign universities. Yes, they are charged a bit extra compared to the domestic American students. So they are financially important, and it is important. See, today, talking about we don't anymore use terms like brain drain, right? In today's day and age of globalization, brain drain sounds an outdated concept. We need to, of course, make Indian education, we need to streamline higher education in India. And see, it's not just about the education system, it's also about our economic scenario. If you are having higher salary packages in India and you have high sustained economic growth rate, right, that will attract people no matter what. So 21st century is defined as the Asian century, and that should also be a part of the packaging. I would say there are certain benefits that the Indian education system has, which are not being conveyed sufficiently. We need to leverage our strengths and improve upon our shortcomings. That's what we need to do.
For example, what? For example, Pranay, what? What are our strengths and what are our weaknesses?
So, talking about these strengths, Shreya, one is, of course, that we have a very vast higher education network. We have one of the biggest higher education spaces in the world alongside USA and China. And there has been a very massive expansion since independence. In fact, even if you look at the number of institutions since 2001, they have increased by more than 400% in the last 25 odd years, right? Secondly, our USP can be our low cost. Higher education in US, no doubt, is very attractive, but then it is also very costly and out of the reach of most Indians, right? Our low cost higher education can be attraction not just for Indian students, but for students across the globe. Thirdly, the kind of cultural pluralism which is there in Indian society. America also has many cultures, but we, unlike in the US, in India, people are not expected to assimilate. In fact, you are encouraged to retain and proudly flaunt your distinctive cultural identity, right? And that cultural pluralism is also reflected in the university campuses, right? And of course, then is the economic growth, which is our very major strength. As far as shortcomings go, Shreya, I would say one is the inability to develop employability. That is one of the key shortcomings. In fact, bulk of the Indian graduates are not employable. Survey after survey has shown that. Right. Secondly, we need to increase the spending on indigenous research because that is greatly lacking. Thirdly, while we have expanded on quantity, we are very lacking in terms of quality. There are hardly any Indian institutions which rank in the global top in terms of quality. We need to ramp up investment in higher education. We need to also partner much more with industry so that our curriculum remains updated and in sync with the market needs. And of course, we need to incorporate technology to a much greater extent than what we have done currently as far as providing higher education goes. Then of course you also have roadblocks like politicization and bureaucratic interference in the higher education sphere. So all of these will need to be addressed. And just one more thing I would like to add, that when we are doing so, we cannot blindly ape the West or the US. We will need to keep in mind the peculiarities of the Indian society and Indian education space. Right?
Yeah, which is what my next question was. In fact, Meeta Sengupta, that's what I wanted to ask. Is it even a fair comparison when we talk about Indian universities and Indian education system and what we see in US or UK or Australia, where a lot of Indian students go? Is it a fair comparison to actually have between the education system and the educational institutions of a developing country as opposed to that of a developed nation?
I think it's a comparison definitely when it comes to student choice. You will say, I will compare X country versus my own country, India, and they are making a choice at that time. So yes, certainly it is a valid comparison to make. And there are many parents and parent background matters who are very well aware and are actually making the choice for their students to go to Indian undergraduate, but then go on to do a PhD in the US or a master's in the US. And ultimately, Indian decision making, the comparison will be made on the variable of the return on investment, because we are Vasuli people. We really care about the return on our investment of our time, emotional distance from our children, the effort that we put in as students, and the experience that we get in return. Most importantly, the economics of the destinations of what we achieve in our thing. And in that, when we make that comparison, you have to make that comparison. And in that, when we make that comparison, definitely there is enough of a shift towards India for an undergraduate thing, but there is still the return on investment on a US degree, especially a higher order degree, certainly remains higher than that of an Indian degree. And this is the journey that India must traverse. Understanding what is the return on investment on each of their degrees. And the study of destinations, we know Indian undergraduates are not unemployable at the point of graduation. 5 years later, 10 years later, what destinations that they have achieved, what is their return on investment, that remains studied and actually pushed as a marketing pitch if we want Indian people to study in Indian universities. So the journey ahead between now, when we have
and what is stopping us from doing that, Meeta?
The important one.
Since you said, Meeta, that we are Vasuli people, why are we not doing our Vasuli in higher education? Why are we not focusing? I mean, what is stopping us when we have all these realizations? What is stopping us from taking the right steps to strengthen our higher education system?
So education happens to be one of those sectors that is very sticky and frustratingly difficult to change. In fact, we are at a point where we need such a paradigm shift that mere reform is not going to do it. When our new universities will demonstrate the change, and that is not commercialization, but when our new universities demonstrate the change, only then will the older universities say, oh yes, I understand, I can do it myself. Reformers, like many people, including those in this room, for a decade at least, if not more, have been saying we need to change the pedagogy. We have to go beyond rote culture. Lecture bazi does not work. We have to have much more industry interaction. We have had decades and decades of efforts in industry interaction. And even so, the stickiness of the old stodgy ways of teaching and learning, the lecture methodology, etc., tends not to move in the bulk of the sector. Yet the top tier 1%, the exceptionally wonderful teachers, even in smaller universities and colleges, are still able to create that able to. And I want to say kudos to these rare folk out there who are able to create excellence, but the pockets of excellence are so tiny, and our ability to research our own education. Pranay spoke of research as part of the larger growth story. Completely agree with that, but also the researching of what has proven to be excellent and given good vasuli within our system, what can be replicated, what should be taken from abroad, not replicated but adapted to our own system. We have such little research and understanding of that at this stage, that even creating the evidence pitch for that for the transformation that we need is a hard struggle. And even if you do that, as I said, I want to be optimistic about the NEP. I didn't say I was optimistic. I want to be optimistic. Even if you do that and you create a document that says we have to do a paradigm shift, you will see so much on the practical side of it. You will see so much pushback at the university level saying we can't change this, we can't change that, this change is not going to work for us. The trick in education is to just keep at it. Those of us who have been in education policy for decades, we realize that it takes 7 to 10 years for small changes to happen, like the transfer of credits from college to one college to another. 2013, 2012, 2014 was when the file was started. Notification came now. So it takes time for this to think, but it surely happens. It's up to us now, not only to add voice, but to also add evidence and research to say, this is not only this is what we need in the change, but this is how the change will work out for you. And I promise it will work out because these are the results that we have seen.
Okay.
So more pilots, in a way, a startup attitude in higher education is what we need, where we are saying,
okay.
Here we come to you, investors, professors who are teaching, they are the investors in terms of their time, and we will show you this is how it has worked. Please give us our Series A. Please give us your college, your state university, your whatever, where you will adopt this new reform. So we have to first give them proof that it works. We have reached that stage. We have to
Okay,
first give
Pranay,
them proof that it works. Then
can I
have the
also
change.
touch upon the point that there needs to be more democratization when we talk about upgrading our higher education institutes. We are only right now focusing, since the past few decades, on our IITs and IIMs, which is great, which puts us at a pedestal, absolutely. But what about the other universities and colleges? What about them? Where are their facilities? Not everybody is going to the IITs and the IIMs, and therefore a little more democratization when we think of the educational institutions and their upgradation.
Absolutely, an upgradation not only in terms of facilities, but also in terms of their research budgets, etc. What a PhD student is paid in these universities, what researchers are paid in this university is barely a living wage. So where is the incentive to do high quality, mind-sparklingly, mind-blowing work that you walk into your class and you tell your students, I researched this link between AI and neuroscience today, and this is how we are going to change the world tomorrow. Will you be part of this journey? Where are those fireworks that should actually be happening in students' brains because they have this inspiring professor or this inspiring piece of research, or I will not say a Nobel laureate. We have such amazing scientists. Now, scientists and academics, unfortunately, are not good storytellers. They are not great communicators. Whereas this is another aspect of the US education system that you rightly and thankfully brought this to this program. They are great communicators. They are salesmen for their ideas as well. Sometimes they are part of startups as well. They are part of the action, and they bring that action, that live action into the classroom. If you look at the middle India that you're talking about, you said engineering students are not employable, yet you go to tier 2, tier 3 engineering colleges. 2/3 of the batch will say, we want to do a startup. We want to start something of our own. Here is a startup that we started in our second year, in our third year. You will hear story upon story. What is happening over here? They're looking for those fireworks that can happen with your education. It's what you can do with it. And the students are ready. The students are ready.
Yeah.
To have their minds blown with some beautiful action. It is our professors who will have to step up. And here is why I think, in fact, the vilification of commercialization, I agree, is possibly a bad idea. I would actually say bring in those wonderful teachers who sit in the commercial space, because they create these motivating lectures. We have movies made about these professors who are doing, these lecturers who are doing training for IIT or training for the UPSC. They are great communicators. Bring them into the traditional education system, bring some light into the traditional education system. We've had enough of dingy corridors and sleepy lectures. That is not going to work any further. The hybridization, bringing in technology, bringing in
That takes a lot,
startups,
isn't it?
bringing
That
in
needs a lot of resources, a lot of effort, a lot of push. Pranay, let me come to you and give you the last word before I wrap this discussion up. What do we need to do really? Yes, we've talked about the education system. We've also talked about the students' choices. But Meeta made an interesting point, that of our educators, our teachers. With due respect, my mother has been a teacher. She's retired as a teacher, but I know the kind of struggles that she has gone through in this education system, and therefore the strengthening of teachers' training as well as more incentives for our educators, isn't it?
Absolutely, Shreya. So teachers also need to be motivated. They are as much human beings as any other professionals. So yes, teachers have a lot of potential, and the way I see it from whatever teachers I have personally known, when a person joins the teaching profession, he does so because there is a sense of connecting with the students. Though over a period of time that gets lost, so we need to make education once again fun for the students and the teachers. The lectures need to be far more engaging, and teachers need to be properly motivated. Also, as a society, we need to prioritize education. I really want to emphasize, see, education is not sexy. Education doesn't grab headlines, and it's not a political voting point. So, as a society, we need to underline the importance of higher education for the whole society and for the economy, right? So, we need to change societal mindsets, and of course, it will require immense political and bureaucratic will to bring about the necessary changes. And it's like a very slow-moving elephant which needs to pick speed. And I would say that we have
clearly a lot more focus that is
examples
needed
in India. I'll just wrap up. So we have a lot of good examples in India, whether it was the Takshila or the Nalanda in the ancient bygone era, or it is the Indian Institute of Science of today, right? So we need to collate these learnings and then apply them on a massive scale.
Yeah, we need to get them back. And of course, education needs to take center stage when we talk about this country's development. And it will not happen without education being at the forefront. Thank you, Meeta Sen-Gupta and Pranay Agarwal, for joining us on Mirror Now tonight and sharing your perspective on the rise of Indian students studying and pursuing higher education in the United States. With that, it's a wrap on Beyond the Headline. News and updates, of course, will continue on Mirror Now. Thank you so much for joining us right now. Bye-bye. Good night.
सर्विसेज सभी